Captain America, Brave New World is in theaters now, so it only seems right to go over the Marvel Cinematic Universe trilogy of Captain America movies. After the ad read and after the open rolls, Brandon will be here and we will talk about our feelings toward Steve Rogers' Captain America trilogy. Spoiler, I had such a good time going back and rewatching. The Winter Soldier was already the MCU movie I had watched the most in the history of life. And so it was a really good time to go back down that trip and get reminisce about the good times. Thank you for being here at Mr. Super Oz. This video is going out and this channel only exists because I, Oz, founded Gamble Comics, which first release was Everlasting Survivors, a 68-page graphic novel called All Day Long. Available now. Follow the link in the description that will take you to gamblecomics.com. While there you can get hats, shirts, posters, much more, but most importantly, the story itself. Coming soon from Gamble Comics, BC Brute. Brandon, thank you for making it for this conversation on Captain America. I mean, the entire MCU trilogy. As I said before I pressed record, The Winter Soldier is the only, not just MCU movie, but the only movie, period, that I had gone to theaters 5 times to pay to watch. Now, granted, part of it was because of a job I had at the time. So I had 3 jobs. I was a janitor at a college, I was a cashier at a gas station, and I helped developmentally disabled people with everyday tasks. And one of them, in this case, was a guy who wanted to go to the movies. I was like, you know what's good? This. Oh. And so it was my 5th time going, but I love, literally, a spoiler for the conversation, here are my ratings for the 3 movies. I gave the First Avenger a 5 out of 5. I thought it was great. I gave Winter Soldier a love. It's just one of those things where I just have big love for it. It holds such a special place. It came out literally came out on one of the worst days of my life at that point, and its story was so relevant and important to me. I was like, man, I don't think I could not love this thing. And then Civil War, while I know isn't on the same level, I still thought it was good for what it was. Of the trilogy, are there any that you feel stand out among them?
Ooh, I think 2 stand out among them. Well, okay, let's get the obvious out the way, because me and you talk about this movie all the time.
Of course.
The Winter Soldier is the best MCU movie in both of our opinions.
Thank you. Yeah,
it's a love for me also. It is so good that they made the same movie twice in the MCU, because Black Widow literally is basically the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
With
everything. Yeah, you just it's a plug and play.
Yeah, it literally is. It's so good that they made the same movie again.
Absolutely.
Okay, so 2 movies stand out to me. The first one, I think the first quarter of the First Avengers is borderline perfect.
Oh, phew. Yeah, the jumping on the grenade scene.
Yeah.
If nothing else, that's what did it for me. I was like, it's the definition of this guy has the heart for the job.
It's to me perfect. I don't think I have a negative thing to say. When he gets his powers, it's still good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the chase scene, of course.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But to me, the film doesn't drastically. Sorry, it's
noticeably.
Noticeably starts to slow down. And then after when he rescues Bucky the first time from the thing, I think the movie kind of becomes like okay. Like,
Yeah.
medium. It's weird because the first quarter, I legitimately
of course.
love that movie.
Yeah.
I can like watch that.
No, I agree 100% that the front of the movie is superior to the back, but I think that it started so strong that's why that I just said it's great.
Okay.
Because like I said, personally, I don't think the ending is like. Part of the reason I let the ending slide is because it's so obvious. You know, we knew that they were going to bring the Avengers together. We knew that he had to be frozen to get there. So it's like, even though even though that part of the film is weaker, it's like, yeah, but everything that's not great, it's like, you had to get there.
Yeah.
We certainly didn't want to grow old and die.
Correct. And, I like the ending when he wakes up and then they told him, like, we wanted to slowly.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I had a date. I love that ending. I think it's.
Yeah,
like,
so good.
Yeah, it's
so
perfect. Good. And the first movie sets up Steve Rogers perfectly.
Yes.
That's why it's just a love to me, who he is as a character, as a man. The reason why he was chosen in the first place.
Oh, I love it. Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and always it's like, and the same thing about, we don't want a good soldier, we want a good man.
Yes.
Because when do you follow the rules? And it sets up who Steve Rogers is, and it sets him up as the counterpoint to Tony Stark.
Absolutely.
Without even them really meeting, but he meets his father.
Yep.
The first movie, it's weird because I like love the first half and everything else starts to slide. It's in between like a 3.5 to 4 to me.
Yeah.
I don't really know exactly.
Yeah, but that's the beautiful thing to me about a 4 is it's still good.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like 4 is drastically bad.
Right, yeah. It's like I can like glow about the movie, but then I can also go like it starts to. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I think a lot of it comes down to the broadened focus, because when you got the Howling Commandos, there are so many of them, but none of them really get focused.
Yes.
Like, Neil McDonough stands out because he's Dum Dum Dugan.
Mm-hmm.
But can you really say that he really stood out? Not really.
Really, yeah.
And so I see your point of view on its shortcomings.
Yeah. And then I think the Winter Soldier sets it up really well, more than the first film, but the friendship between Bucky and Steve, I felt the first film didn't really focus on it enough.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, again, it was strong in the front. It was just weak in the back.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because, seeing the second film, it's like, okay, yeah, they are best friends, but the first film, I don't know. If I had to rewrite
I was gonna say, I felt like watching them back to back to back really helped flesh everything out.
Okay.
Because you saying how that the first movie informed Tony or Steve's rivalry with Tony, I felt like you're right, because when we get to the third film and they're at odds, then I was like, oh yeah, of course you're at odds, because it's not that Steve was the perfect soldier. He was the moral compass and makes the right decision because of who he is, not because of what he does.
Mm-hmm. Heck, even in the first Avengers movie, you automatically see them clash.
100%.
Yeah, a bunch of times because of their philosophies. You get the great quote of, you wouldn't be the one to take the grenade.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, yeah, because I'll just cut the wire. Yeah, it's like, it's just the great thing.
It's contrast.
Yeah, it's contrast.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the second movie, of course,
in my mind, we'll just bounce around, do whatever,
Cool. So when me and Oz talked, I said that the one movie slowly lowered, and it's the third movie. It's Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
It is a good movie.
Yes.
It is good. The reason why to me it lowers is, one, now having read Civil War, the comic books, I can see that one it's really lacking.
Yeah.
And
do you know what makes me laugh about the movie Captain America: Civil War?
What?
It was always slated to be Captain America, but it wasn't always slated to be Civil War until Batman vs Superman was announced, and Kevin Feige's like, oh, Batman vs Superman? What about Captain America: Civil War? We got you.
It was what, Serpent Society?
Probably.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, because I mean, they also were in Brave New World for a hot minute. I'm not sure if they're still there because I haven't watched it, but it just makes me laugh that Kevin Feige's like, oh, you're doing some hero versus hero stuff. I think
Well,
we got that too.
We got that too, yeah. I mean, when the movie first came out, I was in love with this movie because we never really seen like
Absolutely
heroes.
Well, and Tony has that great line. Does anybody on our side have a hidden talent?
Yeah. Does anybody have any unique powers that we don't know about?
Because that giant man scene was, oh, it was top quality stuff.
Yes. And okay, so besides that, maybe this is a controversial take. I think Civil War sets up a bad precedent that the MCU hasn't necessarily figured out yet.
Can I tell you my big negative about Civil War? But I just have to let it go.
Yeah.
I'm going to say adoption or any number of things. Surrogacy. I don't like the Sharon Carter, Steve Rogers kiss because it gives me Luke and Leia vibes. Because in my mind, now granted this hasn't been fully established, but in my mind, when Steve goes back in time, he stays with Peggy. So he ought to know Sharon Carter, her niece, is his niece. And so let's not be doing that.
Yeah, it's that weird. Yeah.
So I'm gonna just pretend like she's adopted or something.
Yeah.
Step niece, because like
something.
I just don't like the Luke and Leia retroactive. That didn't not a big deal. It's like it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's I totally forgot all about that actually. Yeah, I was gonna go with
What's that in a bad precedent? You said?
Yeah. We have to do this because we think that it's going to have the most money because of name.
Yeah.
And I'm referring to Secret Invasions. I think because they're like, well, Captain America Civil War made money, even though it wasn't really necessarily Civil War.
Exactly, just like Secret Invasion.
It's not really Secret Invasion.
And to me, that had such good promise. We've talked about it on the channel before, how Secret Invasion had such gravity to the story. And I didn't watch the Disney Plus show, but from what I hear, the show did not have that same weight to it. And you just know it didn't because it didn't affect the entire everything.
Correct. Black Widow's dead.
Yep.
Hawkeye can't be an alien because he just had his own TV show and he has a kid. Yep. So would it make any sense them being zapped away that he would automatically care? Thor, how could he be a freaking Skrull when he's already that powerful?
Exactly.
You're like, okay, so who's gonna be the only one that's
basically nobody's left? Yeah, a few people that are left have to be the answer.
Yeah, you're like, okay, Rhodey. Yeah, you're like, Rhodey is gonna be the alien. It's like, ooh, big shocker. It's like, and then also, knowing more about Crossbones, I was like, wow, they really did him dirty. Yeah. It's like when you really kind of peel back.
Well, and I like that Frank Grillo is getting a second life in the DC extended universe. Or no, the DC universe, not extended universe. Because have you watched Creature Commandos? Mm-mm. So his voice acting in that show, quality stuff, and the little I've seen of him in the upcoming 2025 Superman movie, once again, I like his work. Nice. So I hope that and supposedly he's going to be a key factor in Peacemaker Season 2. Okay. And so I hope that he gets everything he wanted from the MCU in the DCU. Because I like that guy.
Yeah. And, I like his cameo in Endgame that he was in. Yeah, okay, and this is what Civil War, I think, does great. Is two characters that they set up. Black Panther and Spider-Man.
It's so funny because Black Panther, I don't know. I know people really enjoyed this movie, right? But I just thought in this, freaking perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
So, oh my goodness! Like if he was just showing up everywhere and beating everybody down, I was like, yeah, I'm all for it because this dude's awesome.
Yeah, he was straight to business, no jokes. Hey. My name is
he said I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, he was going for jugulars. He was trying to kill Winter Soldier. He was Chadwick Boseman. That's his first appearance.
And then when he finally figures out at the end that vengeance or revenge or whatever word you want to put on it is what got everybody in this conflict. He's like, oh. I'm not going to kill you. And I love Zemo. Like,
oh, yeah, Zemo was great. Yeah.
he is so freaking calculating and intelligent.
And I love his line when he said, "I don't have powers, but I have time and patience." And to a man, that's great. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he has.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Patience is so invaluable in life, but in that particular story, it's true
Mm-hmm.
because I've been down here recently, not reaching my goals, and then it just hit me over the weekend. I was like, wait a second, I know how to be poor. And so I'll just keep being patient, keep moving forward, keep pushing, and I already knew this was the answer, right? Because I had pre-planned, if this doesn't work, here's the next story. If this doesn't work, here's the next story. But, you know, you always get that high hopes, or at least I do, where you get that high hopes. And I think it's anything. It's not necessarily comics. Like, you go on a date and you're like, oh, what if this is the one, right? You know, or you meet somebody and you're like, oh, man, if only she says yes, you know, type thing. So I think everybody gets high hopes about something. Maybe it's even as simple as, oh, I really hope this video game is fun. Good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then if it lets you down, you know, you get down. But once you come to the perspective of like, it's not over, you know, be patient, keep pushing forward. So, yeah, I agree 100%. Patience is so important.
Yeah. Also, the film, to me, realized that maybe in the Avengers Rise of Ultron that they possibly made Vision too strong.
Mm-hmm.
So they really reduced his strength and ability.
Oh my goodness, check this out. When it comes to that movie, Civil War, and do you know what I think Vision's weakness is in it?
What?
The fact that he's falling in love and doesn't understand it.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Because think about it, it's what took Rhodey out was his distraction of Wanda being in peril.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas he, normally, if he was focused like the robot he should be, he could easily have taken down the ship. But because he's concerned about her, he's only halfway doing the job. He's like, fine, I'll do it. And then he misses the plane, hits Rhodey. And I think it's his nature changing is what his weakness is he was created to be the ultimate body for Ultron, but because his nature is changing, and it's crazy because normally, or not normally, in the Marvel comic continuity, it's because he's fused with a human consciousness that loves her. But here, it's just happening over time and naturally, or some sort of unnaturally.
Yeah.
He's an android, but still, I like that because I love weird weaknesses. So, whether it be in this case love or in a character I've created, I feel like her biggest weakness is being lost in her own
head
thoughts, feelings, and being distractible is, I guess, what you would call that weakness. And so, yeah, I don't know, I enjoy.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that, but because he could, how Avengers Age of Ultron set it up, it looked like he could easily take out most of the
exactly.
minus Thor, but even still,
he also respected him too.
Right.
So
so it looked like the way that everybody looked at Vision was like with true fear and terror.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they didn't know if Ultron was in there or not.
Exactly.
So it's like, but still, they made like Vision was the cream of the crop.
100%. And I think that unaltered, unchanged, I think you're right that he probably could wipe them all out. But I think that the more he became human, and with that I mean with his wanting to show Wanda that he can be her one, I think that's really what was, and maybe I've never talked to Kevin Feige, so maybe I'm projecting, but but I do think that that's what led to him evolving, changing.
And then Spider-Man, first introduction to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I thought was great.
Mm-hmm.
I love when the trailer came out and they finally showed Spider-Man. I love that everybody, I didn't like the suit, I didn't like this and that, and people are like, he was only on the camera for like 3 seconds.
I know, right? I love seconds worth of sight, and then you you can write a whole dissertation
Yeah,
on how bad something is.
You know, same thing with Ben Grimm now with Fantastic
Yeah.
Four. People are like, I like the 2005 version better with Michael Chiklis.
I don't yet. I don't currently. What I mean by that is I like Michael Chiklis just fine.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But what I mean is I don't dislike. I forget his name, to be honest. But the 2025 version, I don't dislike him at all. To me, the biggest oddity of Fantastic Four is that is clearly not Reed Richards. Like, he's not even trying to not be himself. And I don't know, it just feels off to me. Like, can you at least shave? Like, or grow a full beard. One or the other. Pick one. Either grow a whole beard, because I've seen Reed that way, or clean shaven. Pick one. Yeah. But this in-betweeny, it just feels weird to me. But even then, I'll be fine with it eventually, I'm sure. Because it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, yeah. Where was I with Civil War? Yeah, overall, this movie I firmly get a 3.5. I think it hit phase 3 with a bang. Mm-hmm. It's just over time, it just diminished to me.
Sure.
Like, it's still a good movie.
Absolutely.
Somebody wants to put it on, I'll be like, hell yeah, I'll watch Civil War.
I think there are far more positives than negatives.
Yeah.
Because obviously nitpicking, you can find a not insignificant number of negatives, but I just think the positives far outweigh it when it comes to what was done right. Mm-hmm. And to me, one of the big rights was Bucky's acknowledgement of knowing what had happened, even though he was out of control of it.
Yeah, because Tony asked, did you even know who they were or something like that when they were fighting? He said, I remember everyone. And that hurts because
absolutely.
He was completely out of his control and he couldn't.
Yeah, imagine a world where you're driving, your car, and somehow, now granted this is some sort of weird paralysis or something, but, and you now hit somebody. It's like, but not because you want to, but because it just happened, right? Mm-hmm. Man, that's hard. And now to imagine that you've done that so many times out of your control, it's terrible.
Yeah, and then, hired to kill your best friend.
Yeah. Well, and I think that actually speaks to him fighting the Bucky, who's Bucky, and I think it speaks to him fighting to not want to remember. Because, of course, that's a thing you don't want to acknowledge. If you are aware, it's gotta hurt. So it's better to just be like, I don't know you, I don't know nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and something that back to the first film that I didn't think set up very well is that maybe they did it on purpose. I don't know, but it didn't look like he got any serum when they experimented on him.
I think they hide it on purpose.
Okay.
Yeah. So you remember you already spoke about Steve saving Bucky.
Yeah, he was
strapped. I think that they intentionally hid what was happening there because I felt like that it was like an Easter egg, right? If you know, and if you don't know, strap in, it's going to be a good time. Because if they'd have just blatantly come out and said, the Winter Soldier program on the wall,
or something, or you saw vials, you're like, okay, he's gonna, super soldier.
And so I felt like that they were being subtle about it because, and I appreciate that. I appreciate subtlety because I always find it frustrating when it's what I call you think I'm dumb, right? Whomever it is, the writer or the director or whatever. It's like if you think that you have to just spoon feed me it. I'm like, yeah, I'm not dumb. I got this.
Like the Silver Surfer scene, I never forget this. The movie with Jessica Alba and stuff. It was after they got released from prison or they escaped. Mm-hmm. Ben Grimm, they're in the Fantastic Four car. They're like, so you're telling me that we got to stop Doctor Doom, we got to get our powers back, and then we got to start this big space cloud. Yeah. Is that what you're telling me? It's like, hey guys, we understand. You laid it out perfect.
Yeah, you think that we're dumb. Oh my goodness. I don't know if it's true, but I saw an article that said Netflix is going to be explaining in dialogue what is happening on the scene or in the scene because they think that everybody's on their phone instead of looking up. So they're not only is it going to be playing out, but they're going to be explaining in dialogue what's happening.
Oh, okay.
So that you don't get lost. And I'm like, or you could just say, put down your phone, dumbass. It's like, that's always been my argument. It's like, because often, no, not trying to be rude, but like often I'll pause the TV and Carrie will be like, what's up? And I'm like, well, you're playing on your phone, so I'm waiting until you're done, and then we'll get back to it.
I was like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
it's like, you don't have to be sorry.
Yeah.
Just, I would like for you to be aware.
And it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like no hard feelings.
Yeah.
And, you know, better than my dad who falls asleep. It's like, God, he's like, no, I'm awake. It's like, okay. But now to Winter Soldier. I think it's the best MCU movie.
The pacing is perfect.
Yeah. Yep.
The setup for Arm Zola, so good.
Sam introduction with best friend.
Freaking love the Sam introduction because it. I feel like so. It reminded me so much of. There's a thing called extra duty in the Army. So if you get in trouble, you don't get. You can get your pay docked, but oftentimes they'll just send you to do pointless things like pick up trash or, in my case, fill sandbags. So you fill sandbags, then you just empty them, fill them again. Stack them up, empty them, fill them up, whatever. It's just extra duty. It's a punishment, right? Some of the best friends I ever made were on extra duty because we were all the troublemakers, right? And so my point was we could all relate to one another because of the thing that got us here. And that's what I loved about Steve and Sam is while they were from two different generations, they could still relate to one another because it's the universality of war, and it doesn't matter if it's happening in World War II or, you know, OEF, OIF, whatever, anything in the modern age. You still understand that you're away from home, you're in danger. Like you said, your bed's too comfortable. I was like, oh, I love this.
Yeah, he understood.
Yeah,
he understood them. And you know, when Steve and Black Widow were on the run and they knocked on his door, they're like, we don't know anybody, everybody else is trying to kill us. And our friends are trying to kill us. It's like, come on in.
Yeah.
It's like
it's so that's a true friendship right there.
Or I just do what he does, just slower.
Yeah. Oh, that was good.
Yeah. Their introduction is great. It's perfect. And this movie, to me, there was always, I think before this movie came out, Winter Soldier, people still treated Captain America somewhat as a joke. He fights with the trash can lid, or, you know, his costume sucked.
Yep.
This movie really made him cool, or I
agree.
People finally saw.
Well,
what?
Think about Batroc. He says, "Oh, you need the weapon." Well, he just throws down the shield. He's like, "I got this."
Takes off his helmet.
Yeah, he's like, "I can beat you just being me."
Yeah, and it's like this movie firmly like why Steve Rogers, Captain America, is cool. He was always cool to begin with,
100%.
But this movie finally made the masses finally realize like and the type of person he is when like everything is truly against him. Peggy died. You didn't even realize Peggy was still alive until, you know, he's talking to her in the bedside, and then she's having dementia.
Oh,
and
hard time.
You know, it's just like
I don't know when your first introduction to that concept was, but I can remember the first time I ever was around somebody who was present but no longer there. And it's just one of those things where you just don't forget that because it's so painful to realize that somebody you and I think it's always this way, somebody you thought so highly of just doesn't realize the way the world is anymore. And it's like because they're in some other era, you know, unknowingly obviously, and it's just like, ah, man, that's terrible.
And then to me also Black Widow was a mystery, but this movie, and you see the like Steve Rogers' nature of, hey, there's no romance, but they're friends. And he said, how about a friend? And then she's like, we're not in the friend business. But her being around Steve so much rubbed off.
I wish that, and I've always wished this, mind you, but I always wished that we could have got that Budapest mission with Hawkeye and Black Widow, and Winter Soldier just further cemented the fact that I'm like, it can be done because she and Steve worked so well together that, please give me Jeremy Renner and Scarlett Johansson on the mission. And then it also meant that she could have conceptually gotten 2 films and maybe 3 if, like I always theorized, that movie could have done financially well. Then you do the backstory story. I mean, her actual backstory story, which is we got anyway, just at the wrong time.
Yeah.
It was a terrible time. I was actually talking to some people today about how I thought that the lockdown era of Marvel was so disjointed, and that if you'd have cut Falcon and the Winter Soldier into a movie, I think that thing could have made money. Whereas if you would have elongated Eternals, given everybody their own episode, and then done 3 episodes at the end, so 13 episodes in total, then we could have known and understood why we're supposed to care about these people. But because putting 10 stories in 3 hours just was not it was too much.
You're right.
And by the end I got it, but by the end I also didn't care, because I was like, okay, I figured it out, but also it took me this whole time, so I'm kind of done. Whereas if they would have just let it breathe, I'm going to say 13 episodes at like 42 to 45 minutes each, I could have potentially cared about everybody.
Yeah, and I think Marvel really messed up in the way that you haven't seen it, and you're probably not going to, but where they're like, ooh, we should have done that with the Eternals, because it could have been a Penguin.
Oh, yeah.
Where, people love the Penguin.
Absolutely.
Critically acclaimed, won awards and stuff.
Well, again, I don't think it's not visually the problem. It's the time that it took to get to the story.
Right, yeah.
And so, if you just let it breathe, then I would have been much more likely to be on board. Because, I saw an interview with Kumail Nanjiani, or however you say his name.
Yeah.
And I was with Lex Luthor.
Okay.
The guy who played Lex Luthor in Smallville.
Yeah.
And he was saying how that it just hurt him so much that it got so much hate. And I was like, well, I think that had they done this little different, I don't think it would have got that hate.
Yeah, because the concepts and the theme is really good.
Yeah.
That's like the strongest thing with Eternals.
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone who, like, one of the few who actually likes the movie, but I see the flaws.
Of course.
In it, like.
Yeah, I gave it was the first movie I reviewed on the channel. I gave it a 2 out of 5. I thought it was passable.
Yeah.
But, like, I could see the possibilities for a good to great. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what bothers me about it. Like, when I see, if we'd have just done this differently, I feel the same way about Falcon and Winter Soldier, the show, except the opposite. Like, you cut that down, either get rid of or lessen the Flag Smashers and make Zemo the primary, especially with the big twist of Sharon Carter, then, I would have been so happy with that in theaters.
Mm-hmm. Yep, same. But yeah, I mean, Winter Soldier can talk all about it. Oh, and the true villain, played by, first
Robert Redford.
Right, with Robert Redford. But the reveal that Hydra is still there, and that now that is set up and build up to me. That's done right. That the heroes were kind of working for the bad guys the whole entire time.
Loved it.
Yeah, loved it. And
I will say this in defense of people who don't like it, and by that I mean the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm sure they would have been like, could somebody have just told us so we wrote this show better? But I think that's one of the upsides of why Kevin brought everything into the same umbrella, because at the time, TV and movies were
scattered. Daredevil, the Battle for New York did happen.
Yes,
but that was it. Everything else that the Avengers did never happened.
Exactly,
it was weird.
And so I'm glad that everything's now under the same studio banner,
umbrella,
whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Because a lack of communication is bad.
Yeah, and that's how you get with Black Bolt.
Don't bring that up. I hated that.
Yeah.
And the reason I hated that show is because I loved the book.
Mm-hmm.
The books were so good, and then that show was so terrible.
What, Inhumans?
Inhumans.
Yeah, Inhumans. Yeah.
I thought I just told you not to bring that up.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It was just on the.
But I liked his presentation in Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, because that's the way he should have been presented from the start.
Yeah. But yes, now it's under the same umbrella.
Yeah. Thankfully, everything's good.
And as much as people like to talk about the MCU now, and of course there's flaws because it doesn't seem like there's any direction, but it now finally feels like to me that there is an actual end game or end point that they're now reaching.
Secret Wars is that
Yeah.
that end point in
You're right.
the game.
And now it seems like, that all the multiverse stuff is now coming together to make some sort of sense.
Did you see, and I don't know if it's true or not, but did you see that Marvel is considering bringing back Jonathan Majors?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I read that today.
I enjoyed his presence, and I don't know if anything's true, false, or indifferent. Is he good to go?
Yes, because the lawsuit was dropped by.
Cool.
Yeah, so
but,
that's why.
So I would like to see him come back,
Yeah.
finish it up, whatever it takes. You don't have to be the top bad guy, but just finish up the story.
Yeah, he can be a right-hand man towards Robert Downey Jr.'s
Absolutely.
Because you got RDJ now, you're gonna have to use him.
For sure.
You
made the announcement, so
right.
just do
so,
it.
and he's not going to be the Doomsday, he's not going to be the
main continuity.
Fantastic Four Doomsday.
Yeah.
But I would like to see, because if they're bringing back all these actors, you have to bring Robert Downey Jr. back.
So, Jason Momoa, I know this is off the topic of Captain America, but Jason Momoa getting cast as Lobo has really made me want to see something that I don't know if it's possible, but I'd be totally down for it. Henry Cavill as Bruce Wayne. To me, the guy just has that swagger to him, and we know that he's a great fighter, or visually it can be presented as such. And I was like, man, Henry Cavill as Bruce Wayne / Batman, I think that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah. People wouldn't hate it, I think.
Well, and I think it might actually mend fences potentially, because most people aren't saying. I don't feel like most people are saying Zack Snyder is what I love. They're saying Henry Cavill is what I love. So it's like, if this guy is able to be potentially the top guy, as much as I love Superman, I understand most people think Batman's the one.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you can get him to be in that good spot, that spot that everybody wants, then maybe it's a way to please everyone.
And then also, it's kind of The Rock's fault. Dwayne Johnson.
100%.
You really shouldn't have put him in the teaser thing when there really wasn't a green light for him.
I also think that he shouldn't have made Black Adam a standalone hero when he really should just be the villain of Shazam 2.
Right, and you set up in the first Shazam movie that they gave the powers to somebody else. Yeah. And it's Dwayne kind of putting the cart before the horse and 100%. Looking like, well, Shazam
I'm
is
a
lower.
Top guy. That's
Shazam is a little. It's like, but you're a Shazam villain.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
I don't care that you mildly resemble him.
Yeah,
just do what works.
And it's like, so people want to see us Henry Cavill and us fight, and it's like, dude, just
there's a good story with that. There is, but you could easily do that in Shazam 2.
Yep.
Yeah. So, whatever, it's fine.
Sorry, sorry for the tangent.
It's okay, it's okay. We're, A, the channel's known for it, and B, we already talked about every Captain America movie, so I appreciate you, and obviously, the Steve Rogers Captain America trilogy lives on in the canon of Mr. Superheroes the channel, because, it's all or nothing, and they all survive.
Yeah. Are you going to see A Brave New World this week, or...
it's funny, I was actually going to talk to you about that after... I stopped rolling.
Okay.
Because Josiah had asked as to what your availability was, and I didn't know because it hadn't come up in regular conversation. Mm-hmm. But we will talk about that after the cameras go off, because at some point I do have to watch it, because there is no longer a current critique on the channel. Okay. I'm no longer rushing to get content out, because it was a pain last year for Beetlejuice and Twisters and anything basically that was in theaters, and I was rushing to get it done, editing and whatnot. So I've adjusted the current critique concept and made it 1 week later. Okay. So it no longer releases on a Monday. It's now a week after it hit theaters. It comes out the Friday, and it's 1 week later. Okay. Which the first 1 week later was Creature Commandos, which wasn't in theaters, obviously, but that's when the review came out, is 1 week after the show completed. And it'll also be the way that I'll do for Peacemaker Season 2 and anything else that is like finished
Mhm.
is it'll be 1 week later. Then here comes Thing, like Reacher season 3,
Cool.
1 week later.
Like,
not
yeah.
oh, let me get it out the same day. Like I just if this was my full time job, if I was getting paid for this, fine. But I need that time to get things done because I got other stuff going on. I'm writing comics. I'm talking to letters. I'm hiring artists. I'm coaching up new artists.
Yeah.
And then I got a 9 to 5. So it's like,
Yeah.
give me a week.
Yeah. Yes. Gotcha.
But yeah, we'll talk about it.
All right. See you guys.